Speaker, my question is for the Premier. Premier, your government has recently been holding consultations on Ontario's climate change strategy, which is really just a cover for your upcoming carbon tax. A price on carbon will increase the cost of everything from gas to groceries. And Premier, we already have received over 13,000 signatures on the PC Stop the Carbon Tax petition. Premier, my question for you is this. Will you listen to the people of Ontario and say no to a carbon tax?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I know that the Minister of Environment and Climate Change is going to want to weigh in on it. But I'm going to take a crack at it to start out with. You know, Mr. Speaker, I think that it is not underestimating the issue to say that climate change is a defining issue of our time. Yes. There is probably no issue that is more important for all of us to tackle. And, Mr. Speaker, I would go further to suggest that this is not a partisan issue. This is an issue that is going to affect all of us, that is going to affect our children and our grandchildren, Mr. Speaker. And we have done a lot in Ontario. By shutting down the coal-fired plants, Mr. Speaker, we have made an enormous step forward. But the fact is that there is more to be done. There is more that we have to do if we are going to be responsible to generations to come, Mr. Speaker, and we are going to do that.
Supplementary.
Back to the Premier. Speaker, I heard the Premier say there's no issue they want to tackle. I think she meant to say tax. Because really and truly, Ontarians already have some of the highest energy costs in North America, and a carbon tax will only further drive jobs out of this province. Premier, it is unacceptable that your Minister of Energy has nonchalantly stated businesses come and go. But, Premier, we definitely don't want a carbon tax to speed up that process, driving jobs out of this province, especially when other jurisdictions, such as BC, saw a carbon tax increase the cost of farmers an extra $4,300, and in Australia, it raised energy by 9%. Premier, will you heed the advice of the PC Party of Ontario and commit to not implementing a carbon tax?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think that the member opposite might look at other jurisdictions, even in this country, Mr. Speaker. She might look at BC, she might look at Quebec, she might look at Alberta, Mr. Speaker, and see that there are other jurisdictions in this country that have moved forward responsibly. She then might look at other jurisdictions internationally, Mr. Speaker. She might look at Sweden. She might look at where the opportunities have been increased because there has been a regime of carbon pricing. But apart from all of that, Mr. Speaker, the fact is that we cannot sit idle. We cannot pretend that this is not an issue. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, there are people in every one of our ridings who are concerned about the fact that they're seeing changing weather patterns, Mr. Speaker. They know that they don't have a federal government that is moving.
Order. No, I'm getting order so she can finish and I can hear. Please finish.
Know that they don't have a federal government that is putting in place a framework, and that it is up to the provincial governments to work together to make sure that we take responsible steps for future generations, Mr. Speaker.
Final supplementary.
And get back to the Premier. Speaker, Ontarians are concerned about the cost of living and the cost of doing business going through the roof. And Premier, back to you. In last year's election, the only thing you said to the people of Ontario about a carbon tax is that you won't implement one. Premier, as the second of our 5 budget asks, will you stick by what you said to the people of Ontario and commit in your 2015 budget that you will not put another burden on taxpayers' shoulders by levying a carbon tax?
Environment and climate change.
Thank you. Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Alberta, I want to say it really slowly, Alberta has a price on carbon introduced by the same party she's affiliated with, Mr. Speaker. British Columbia, which has seen some of the most dynamic per capita GDP growth in Canada, has a price on carbon, Mr. Speaker. Quebec has a price on carbon, Mr. Speaker. California has a price on carbon, Mr. Speaker. New York has a price on carbon, Mr. Speaker. Massachusetts has a price on carbon, Mr. Speaker. Mexico has a price on carbon. They're all seeing. China has a price on carbon. Germany and could the member explain her party's position, how she reduces GHG emissions, how she thinks that Ontario can be the only jurisdiction to reduce it without a price on carbon, Mr. Speaker? Because that's fantasy.